Hello everyone and welcome to Burnt Toaster Productions. I'm your host, Burnt Toaster. As you could probably tell by the title, this is the Q&A video I'm deciding to do as part of reaching 100 subscribers. Before we get into the video though, I want to let you all know that you have two choices on the special run I'll be doing for reaching 100 subscribers. Possibly even more. You'll have a choice between an all achievements run in Fable Anniversary, or a Skyrim dungeon crawler run, which will be lightly modded. You'll be able to vote in the community tab, so get on over there and vote on your choice. Do it now, or I'll put some lukewarm casserole in your socks tomorrow evening. Just keep in mind that it may be out later than January. Now, let's get into this video, shall we? So first up, we have a question that was basically asked twice by two different people, though the first commenter had 3 questions total in their comment. The question being, why did you start making content? At first, it was mostly to share what games I grew up with or enjoyed to whoever wanted to watch, and to try to spread a bit of happiness or joy through attempting to entertain others, which is why I started with Let's Plays. But that's not the only reason. But after I changed the type of content I make, it switched focus more to the latter. I know that life is far from the easiest thing in the world, and sometimes all you really need is a little bit of entertainment to keep you going. And if I must torture myself to provide said entertainment, so be it. The worst thing it'll do is turn me into a glutton for self-inflicted mental and emotional trauma. The rest of the questions from the first commenter are, what are some of your favorite games of all time? And what games specifically are you wanting most to do challenge runs in? I'll give you my top 5 favorites, which aren't in any particular order. Nier. I thoroughly enjoy Replicant and Gestalt, as well as Automata, though I'm more of a fan of Replicant or Gestalt. It was my first experience with the series, and I prefer the more depressive and dark story. I can wholeheartedly admit that I won't ever get through that game without shedding at least a tear somewhere around the end. And regardless of which game it is, I absolutely adore the soundtrack. The Yakuza or Like a Dragon series. Honestly, anyone that has touched one of those games knows exactly why. I've never seen a series that could pull off having a mix of a serious story and 5 minutes later have a weird or goofy sub-story plot out of nowhere. It's truly a work of art. Plus, the karaoke minigame is simply perfection. Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen. I can't help it, I really like climbing on a Cyclops and going right for its eye. In all seriousness, it's a game that really scratches that itch of gathering a party of adventurers that synergize really well with one another. Well, at least in terms of action RPGs. The 2005 release of Star Wars Battlefront 2, one of my favorite childhood games that I still play occasionally. I can't tell you how many hours I put into Galactic Conquest. I've never played it online though, and I'll admit nowadays the bots are a bit too easy. Still, if I have some time to kill and I just want to have fun being another soldier in a war, I'll play it occasionally. And then of course, Fable. Specifically the first game, though you could say it's mostly nostalgia. I've played it since I was pretty young after all, and still it has that level of charm that you don't often find in games. Either that or I'm so blinded by nostalgia that I don't realize it. Now the third question is a bit of a tough one. In general, I would like to have a variety of games I do challenge runs in, and that's mostly because I can get burnt out on certain games if I'm constantly playing them. But since you asked for specific games, I'd say Mass Effect 1 through 3, Trepang 2, Vampire Survivors, at least one for Mortal Sin, maybe a couple of modded runs for Halo, either of the Nier games, a run for Fable 3, and I'd like to try my hand at doing one for Phasmophobia since I do have friends that play it. I'm just too much of a coward to do it by myself. Other than that, I'd have to sit down and start thinking of more games, since it's a bit hard to sift through my library that expands several consoles as well as PC and find games that would be applicable for challenge runs. It's a big reason why I won't scoff at any game recommendations. I may not be able to get to it immediately, but I'll try to get to it as soon as possible and do whatever run. The next comment has 3 questions as well, which are, do you play RPGs for fun? And if so, which is your favorite? How do you come up with your challenge runs? And what was the hardest challenge run you have done or attempted to do? I do play them for fun, and it's quite difficult to choose a favorite. I kind of hop around from one to another, so there's not really one that I absolutely adore above the rest. I play anything from Darkest Dungeon to Fallout New Vegas, which are 2 wildly different RPGs. I can't really choose one. Apologies. As for the process of coming up with challenge runs, it's either a run that has been done before, such as the stick run for Fable Anniversary, or one of my own making like the Kajin footwear run. Normally, I'll begin with an idea or a game I want to play. If I start with the idea, I try to find a game that will allow me to complete most, if not all of it, with the idea in mind. If it's a game, however, I'll brainstorm unusual ways to beat it. Typically, I try to go for something themed because it's a bit more fun and unique, though that can take a while since I can't force ideas to come out of my brain. So sometimes I'll just choose a weapon that generally sees little use from anyone that plays the game in question because it's terrible. The hardest run I had completed is either the Tetanus Man run for Dragon's Dogma, Dark Arisen, or the stick run for Fable Anniversary, both requiring using the worst weapons in terms of damage, or at least I think. That sounds about right for Dragon's Dogma, which means fights are tedious. The longer the fights go on, the more chances you have for making mistakes. For one I attempted, I'd have to say the Fallout 3 BB gun run. I tried and failed, so it didn't become a video. I may revisit the idea sometime, but it was incredibly rough. At the time, I wanted to try to simply get a run out, and I feared it would have taken a bit too long for me to get through. And the last one from this commenter is, how old were you when you started playing games? I was pretty young when I started playing games. If I remember correctly, it was before I even went into kindergarten. It may have been after, since that's pretty far back and I can't really remember too much, but I distinctly remember having a sore throat and eating a Zero bar while playing the original Xbox version of Fable. And I've been playing games ever since. Alright, there's another 5 from a commenter that wished to have their name withheld, so here we are. These questions are, what's your favorite memory when it comes to games? What's your long-term vision for your channel? What kind of community do you want to cultivate? What are your top 5 channels on YouTube? And pineapple on pizza or none? My favorite memory is one of two things. Either one of the number of times I played Phasmophobia with a couple of friends, or the first time I experienced the true ending to Nier Automata. The Phasmophobia session was probably one of the most terrifying things I've had the pleasure of playing through. 2 of my friends and I decided to play on the prison map. We spent a nice bit of time looking for the ghost room. A friend and I were walking through the upper level of a cell block, combing through, looking at the thermometer and EMF reader. Our mutual friend was downstairs, I think with a ghost box. While we were in the upper area, the ghost started hunting. Our friend understandably ran out of the room like a bat out of hell. Now, we didn't really have anywhere to hide, so we huddled up with each other at the end of the walkway. The ghost stopped hunting right before it got to us. Realizing that, we booked it downstairs, and as soon as we made it to the door to get out of that little area, the ghost started hunting again, causing me to scream with a couple of extra octaves. With the ghost right behind us, we just ran for the exit, hid out there for a while to wait for the doors to unlock, got out, and immediately left because it was like a scene in a horror movie. The true ending of Nier Automata requires you to go through a nice lengthy bullet hell section. Now at the time I didn't have access to the internet, so I got to the bullet hell section and got to this point where I could not progress because there were too many bullets being fired off and I wasn't dealing enough damage. So I took my PS4 to a family member's house to connect to the internet and called for backup. Something about that feeling of everything seeming hopeless and then getting 5 other people's save data to save your hide just stuck with me. I understand it's quite gimmicky, but with Weight of the World, the End of Yorha version playing in your ears while complete strangers send their assistance in the form of more firepower is probably one of the best feelings in a single-player game for me. You feel unstoppable as the music swells, easily a great memory after being stuck in that part for a good while. My long-term vision for my channel. It's a bit difficult to have a purely perfect idea of what I want to do with this channel since something could come up or change at a moment's notice. But I do want to at least seriously consider taking donations, preferably through Buy Me a Coffee since they don't take a large percentage as a transaction fee. You also don't have to sign up to donate, and the minimum donation is like $1. But I know it's a bit early to really think about that. Still, it doesn't hurt to have an idea. I may also consider having a monthly subscription over there, but I'd have to find some sort of special incentive so it feels worth it to those that are handing me money. We'll probably cross that bridge when we get to it though. I'd also like to get some merch going on at some point, but that's going to be much later in the future. As far as content is concerned, I'm going to be sticking with challenge runs for the foreseeable future. Would be open to any collabs or anything like that when I get big enough. I understand it's not exactly easy to do so with the particular video format I default to, but I think it'd be pretty fun working with other creators. The type of community I'd like to have is one that's just pretty calm and easygoing in general. That may be wishing for a lot since the anonymity of the internet and the fact that creators can't exactly control their community. But if someone does a run I did, for example, I'd rather have a community that'd be willing to build them up rather than tear them down. Because as I see it, they could have a totally different way of seeing things, and that's interesting to me. Plus, it's not like I own the idea for a frickin' challenge run. No one really owns it, especially if you put it out on the internet. I don't have a want nor need for toxicity or rude behavior either, although I can't complain with the community that I've gotten at the moment. You guys are some of the nicest people I've had the pleasure of interacting with and always help keep me going. My top 5 channels on YouTube are a bit tough to answer, if only because there's a bit of a variety to the content I watch, but off the top of my head it'd have to be Rubik's Raptor. Although I haven't played Arma in any capacity, I enjoy this man's positive energy as well as the shenanigans he and his group Ignis get up to. They're probably some of the most fun and enjoyable game-related videos that I watch on a fairly regular basis. ODS. Official Duck Studios is probably my favorite non-game related channel. Don't have much of a reason. It's either two guys doing something in an albeit unconventional manner, or doing something so stupid and dangerous that I could never do it myself nor recommend anyone else try. Mike Burnfire. The chemistry between Mike and Zach is pretty good. I love their banter and their content, and listening to Zach rant about guns. I am a simple man with simple tastes. Pantsa Hat has some of the best stop-motion animation videos that I've had the pleasure of randomly finding one day, most notably the Hippo Saga. Funny while remaining fairly relevant in terms of jokes. Highly recommend watching that channel if you don't already. As honorable mentions, I've got 2 more for you, Marsh and Tony for You. Both primarily make content centered around Shin Megami Tensei, mostly Tony as of the date of me recording this, but Marsh has some pretty high-quality game analyses on more obscure Japanese games, including games from the SMT series. Doesn't matter what game Marsh is talking about, I'm always ready to spend 2+ hours watching the entire video. Tony covers the demons and personas because a lot of them are yoinked straight from folklore or religion. Tony makes some pretty good videos, so if learning about the many different demons and personas from SMT or Persona interests you, I definitely recommend giving him a watch. And then last but not least, Technology Connections. I can't help it, I really like learning about how things work, and Technology Connections thoroughly provides that while also being pretty entertaining in terms of commentary. I love that channel to pieces. Of course, there are plenty that I wish I could add onto this list, but I kind of already broke the count because of the honorable mentions. Now for the last question, the question that some of you are probably going to judge me for, but oh well. Pineapple on pizza or no? You just had to open this can of worms, didn't you? Then again, you did ask the question within time, so I'm obligated to answer. I'm one who rather enjoys pineapple on pizza. If you don't, that's fine. I'm not going to call for you to be kicked by an angry mob of people on the street. We're all different in the things we like. This is just one of those ways. Then again, I'm also the same guy who doesn't mind eating something like meatloaf with a honey glaze, so maybe I'm a bit of an outlier. Since I have no more questions to answer, I figured I'd take the opportunity to talk about whatever comes to mind as far as the channel is concerned. In the future, after the subscriber special, I plan on taking more suggestions and actually doing them. I've gotten a few suggestions for Skyrim runs, which I'm somewhat excited for because they are a little weird. But hey, you need a little bit of weirdness in the world and I'm here to add it. Also, don't be afraid to suggest a modded run. Mods open up a lot more avenues for different themed runs and different challenges in general. So long it's not a pain to mod the game, I'm more than willing to try. Before I forget, if you do suggest a run and I'm doing it, at the start of the video, I'll give you a little shout out. Because why not? You guys are what makes this channel possible. You all deserve some level of recognition. Especially if you suggest a run. Even though I'm not making any money from it, and I don't expect to for a nice while. And of course, as I said earlier, I'd consider taking donations. Most of the money will be put right back into the channel, you know, hardware upgrades, getting new games, and help cover some living expenses. I also want to talk a bit about content creation in general and my experience thus far. For years, I was someone who watched content on YouTube, and I'll admit I underestimated just how difficult it could be at times. It's been a dream of mine to, do this since I was a kid. Even when I first started, I didn't know just how much work goes into it. It takes a lot, but I think it's worth it. Building a community that comes together from all walks of life all over the world is a fantastic feeling, even though most of you are from like the same handful of countries that primarily speak English. And when you're first starting out, it's a pretty big learning experience. It's actually daunting. You have to learn how to set up your recording software or camera, provide commentary or type a script, and edit. When I first started, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, so I decided on Let's Plays for the time being, because I wanted to focus on older games, and I know there's an audience for it, but that audience is pretty small. Plus, it'd give me valuable experience without requiring a bunch of previous knowledge. Looking back at it now, I do think I tried a little too hard in the beginning. Though, to be completely fair, I felt like I had to try harder than anyone else. Mostly because I had this little slightly negative thought screaming from the depths of my brain, and that being, you're nothing special. Of course, if harnessed correctly, you'll be able to use it as motivation and retain some level of humility when you make it big. Though for me, I think it hurt more than it helped. Over time, I got into a much more natural and less forced state when recording. Eventually, as a sort of special episode for the Fable Anniversary Let's Play, I decided to do a challenge run, something to commemorate my first completed series, and that's when I was hooked. I had so much more fun typing up the script, playing one of my favorite games in a way I'd never done previously, and editing it into a pretty beefy video. Although it took me forever to actually get it done, I felt so happy and a little proud of getting 100+ views on that video. However, content creation is rough. Things don't always work out during the recording and editing process, or you pour blood, sweat, and tears into a video and it ends up getting low views. That's probably the roughest part of content creation. As a creator, it's your job to create content that people want and like to watch. When no one watches it, your ego and drive take a little hit at the very least. I was also starting to get a few dislikes on my videos, which, hey, my content isn't for everyone and I definitely won't claim to have the highest quality, but if I must be honest, at the time it hurt a little bit. There were plenty of times that I felt like giving up due to a bunch of tiny frustrations stacking on top of one another like a Jenga tower. It felt hopeless on several occasions. Despite that, I kept on going, trying my best to do at least a little bit better next time. Because as long as one soul out there liked my videos, I wasn't going to give in. Which brings me to what I wish to leave you with, my dear viewers. If you want to get into content creation or pick it up again, do it. Try it out at the very least. If you want to do challenge runs I've done, go right ahead. I'll even give you a shout out. Speaking of shout outs, the handsome individual known as Hugbees made a community post that really helped me continue during one of my worst ruts. To quote Mr. Hugbees, "Trying to be original is a waste of time. Everything has been done before. Focus on doing things your way with your own voice." So keep going, and don't give up. If you're feeling burnt out, take a bit to rest and refresh yourself, or try something a little different. There will always be someone out there that enjoys your content for whatever reason. Alright, that's enough ranting and rambling from me. Once again, thank you all for the support. It means so much more than I can put into words. I never thought I'd get this far within about a year's time, and it's helping drive me forward. And thank you to everyone who asked a question. I know there weren't a lot of questions, which is fine. Just means I'll be refraining from doing another Q&A for a good long while. At least until there's demand. Also, don't forget to vote for the subscriber special run. I'm hoping to have an idea by the time the challenge run comes out, which will be somewhere around the 23rd or 24th of this month. Anyway, this has been Burnt Toaster from Burnt Toaster Productions, and I shall see you all next time. Bye for now.